Today we're going to be talking about the 8 biggest trends in the world of AI, and I'm starting this weekly series. The first one is Claude. Now they have 5 new recent features that has made me switch from ChatGPT. I'll talk about that today. We're also going to talk about ChatGPT's new R1 Pro API and how it compares to DeepSeek, and then we're going to dive into some DeepSeek R2 rumors. We're also going to talk about the LLM provider platforms becoming the same. We're also going to talk about vibe coding gone wrong. We're going to talk about why design is so important in this new AI era. We're going to talk about robots. We're going to talk about AI replacing jobs. And then we're actually going to start with AI-VFX. So if you're interested in AI and how AI affects marketing and culture, app building, tools that we use every day, and content creation, then consider subscribing, because that is what I talk about right here on this channel. So today we're going to start off on the creative side, and we're going to dive into some AI-VFX. So there was some new announcements coming out of PIKA Labs. Let's take a look at these videos. So here's the tweet from PIKA. Behind the scenes sneak peek. Manipulate any character or object in your video while keeping the rest perfectly intact. We see this car driving. Now we see an input field. The car levitates. And would you look at that? The car levitates. This is AI VFX here. This is insane. Here we see an apple levitating. Here we see a character coming out of an iPad. Here we see a TV hovering off the wall. And this is actually insane. Look at this. Let's slow this down for a second. Let's go to 0.5 speed here. Look at this. This is legit VFX right here. This is sick. This is another example from PIKA Labs. So this is the input video. And this guy is sitting at his desk and he's just going to wave. And then the prompt is the man puts his hands on his head. Boom. The guy changes to put his hands on his head. Now the prompt is the man holds a baby. And would you look at this? The man is holding a baby. The man stands up. He realistically puts his hands on the side before standing up. Now the man cries into his hand. What I like about PIKA Labs is the way that they've packaged their AI tools. And I think they're going after creators who still want to film. A lot of content creators have really nice cameras. They don't want to generate AI-generated images and then turn those into videos like Runway and all these other AI video tools. The primary workflow is to generate an image or to take an image and turn it into a video. Where I think a lot of creators want to be able to continue to use their cameras and be creative out in the real world and then use AI to create VFX. And that's exactly what they're doing. I have fully canceled ChatGPT. I don't use it. I use Claude because I believe it is better for my use cases, and I will explain why. So let's talk about the search feature. You can now type a question like, please search the internet and tell me the latest in vibe coding, and do it in an artifact, 2 paragraphs. And so an artifact is basically Canvas if you've used ChatGPT. So right now it's going to search the web. As you can see here, here are the sources. And now it's going to open up this side window, and it is going to create the 2 paragraphs that I asked for after searching the internet. And so these are the 5 reasons why I've switched from ChatGPT to Claude fully. Because now it can search the web, and yes, ChatGPT can do that, but that was basically the only thing keeping me in ChatGPT over Claude, was that Claude couldn't search the web. Now it can. It also has a new edit feature. It has MCP. It has computer use, which I don't think is fully there yet, but I think by the end of this year it will, and I'll make videos on that. And then it's also the best AI coding model and has been for almost a year now. So now I want to talk about the edit feature because I think it's so underrated. So what you can do now in artifacts, we can just highlight this part right here and we can hit improve. We can say make this more concise. And instead of generating the full thing again, we can hit update and watch it just edit this really fast. Boom. It edited it directly. It didn't have to generate the full thing, right? We can say change the title to be more concise and more clickable. And it's only going to edit the title rather than like regenerating the full thing, which actually took so long. And there we go. And then another thing that Claude can do is Claude now has access to tools via MCP. So it has 46 MCP tools available. And so I can say, write an essay on pizza and put it on my desktop. And I talked about this in last video, so I won't talk about this too much. but we now have a new reasoning model, right? That is another thing that Claude has now that it didn't have previously, was the ability to think. Their new Claude 3.7 model is very good at thinking. And so it can now actually just write things directly on our desktop. And if we go to our desktop, we can actually see that it was saved right here. And we can actually open this up. So here's the desktop folder. Here is this little paragraph about pizza. And all I need to do is say, actually make that paragraph shorter and add one at the end. And it can actually edit this. It will edit this, and then it will update the file, right? There we go. It made the first paragraph shorter, and then it added something at the end. I want to do research on the top pizza places in Texas. Add a section after that one on the same document. So now it will search the internet using their built-in search feature. This is no longer an MCP search, and it is significantly better. And now it wants to have access to this essay, and it will actually update this file on my computer. It's writing it right now. We see home slice pizza, and it's going to update. As soon as it's done coding this, it will update. Boom, there we go. So it did research and added them to the file. So it can search, add and edit files, and this includes files for Premiere Pro, for files for Blender, any program downloaded on your computer. And we've talked about that in the previous video. And look up Blender MCP if you want to see the true limits of what Claude can do in creative software. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about OpenAI's new O1 Pro. So like I said, I am canceling on April 9th. That's when my account is done. But for now, I still have access to O1 Pro mode. I don't know if the Plus users get access to O1 Pro, but this is their best model. This AI model is very good, but OpenAI is incredibly worried that DeepSeek R2 will actually be better than O1 Pro, because O1 Pro was the most insanely priced AI model I've ever seen in the API. And if you don't know what that means, I'm going to explain it right now. So take a look at this. O1 Pro is 270 times more expensive than DeepSeek R1. And he said, unless those extra 10 IQ points push it to Einstein level genius, it's probably not worth it. And then he goes on to compare this DeepSeek price per 1 million output tokens. So basically, think of it like words. Per 1 million words, it costs you $600 to use OpenAI technology, whereas it is $219 compared to $600 in output tokens. Some of you know what I'm talking about when I say API, but some of you don't. And so, for example, a tool like Perplexity, right? You can have it on any AI model that you want. And so we can actually turn this to Pro, and we can actually select which model that we want to use. And we can even use the new GPT 4.5 model. This right here is an AI tool that uses other companies' technology within their tool. And in order to access, ChatGPT's tool or Grok by xAI or Google's Gemini, it uses their API. And every time it runs, it costs a certain amount. And if I say, tell me a news story about basketball, right? There is a certain amount of output tokens, right? Perplexity has their own search feature, right? It's searching, and then there's an output token. And these tokens, all of these are paid for by Perplexity, and ultimately by the user who uses these tools. If the prices of them all went up, these tools would probably cost more. Basically, DeepSeek, per this response, right? If they're a response of equal sizes, the GPT O1 Pro model costs 270 times, wait, what was it? 270 times more expensive to run the GPT O1 Pro model than DeepSeek R1. And so we can type in, please tell me the history of the world in the tone of Kurt Vonnegut. And this model is the best at thinking right now, but it doesn't give you an authentic stream of its thoughts like DeepSeek R1 does. If you use DeepSeek R1, it shows you the reasoning process. It shows you how the AI is thinking. However, OpenAI hides it because they don't want other companies training their AI models on its thought process. Whereas if you use DeepSeek R1, it's actually really fun because it shows you the raw chain of thought. This is ChatGPT O1 Pro, and notice how it's been thinking for over a couple minutes. And all it says here in its thinking, right? All it says in its thinking is create a whimsical overview. That's all it shows you, which is actually bullshit, in my opinion, because you're paying for these tokens. These output tokens, you paid for this output. And if you use DeepSeek, you not only pay for the output, but you also pay for the thinking, the reasoning. And these AI models have figured out that if you allow these AI models to use inference, and if you're new to AI models, it basically has this thinking step before generating its output. And they found that the longer you let it think about its answer and basically talk to itself in this weird way, the better the answer is. And I have found the most useful part of DeepSeek is access to that thinking. Those thinking steps are incredibly useful because you can actually see exactly where the AI went wrong. You can actually see the AI figure out the problem. You can see how the AI thinks about you. You will see its assumptions. It'll say, oh, and I will show you this right now. So we can take this same question from ChatGPT and we can go to DeepSeek, right? We can go to DeepSeek and we can paste this in. Look at this. We get the raw chain of thought right here. We get to see exactly how this AI is thinking. So the user wants a history of the world written in the style of Kurt Vonnegut. And not only is it fun to look at and read while you wait for its response instead of sitting there, and then ChatGPT basically gives you this summary of its secret sauce, even though DeepSeek is, right behind them in terms of quality. Like, we can actually see the raw chain of thought, and then we get the output. And then I can find an error in its thinking. I'd be like, okay, wait, why did you talk about that? And then that can be part of the next prompt so that you can improve. And I love the way that it thinks. It's very fun. It's very interesting to see how these AI models think. And that's why I prefer DeepSeek over GPT-O1 Pro. Obviously, GPT-O1 Pro is a little bit better. Apparently, it's 8 to 12 IQ points smarter, which is significant, except for the fact that DeepSeek R2 might be coming out soon. And now Smokeaway said that rumor has it DeepSeek R2 scored a 90% on ArcAGI, and this is just speculation. And for those of you who don't know what ArcAGI is, it's basically like this test that they made specifically for AI models and measuring their AGI-ness. And the O3 models, if you remember Sam Altman's announcement during the 12 days of Christmas where he announced the new O3 models that were super good, the low efficiency O3 model got about a 90% on this ArcAGI test. And this is where the compute multiplier was 172, meaning it used 172 times more compute than the standard O3 model. And so each task took over 14 minutes. And so if you look at the DeepSeek model, and you saw that it was its thinking model, right? Like you could see its stream of thinking. It basically did this times 172 plus, right? Probably more, where it thought for about 13 minutes straight, and it got a 90% roughly. And they are saying that the DeepSeek R2 got the same score. If this is true, and then it ends up being only maybe 2 to 3 times more expensive than DeepSeek R1, even if it's $10 per $1 million output token, OpenAI is in trouble. And they need to fully pivot into making really good products because they no longer have an advantage. And they will no longer be able to charge these insane prices for premium products, not just ChatGPT Pro, which is $200 a month, but also they're thinking about charging companies $10,000 to $20,000 a month for AI-powered PhD level agents. And China's right behind the US, and they're making them way cheaper, as we've seen with Manus. So in conclusion for this section, O1 Pro is 270 times more expensive to use via the API, even though it's, a little bit smarter, 10 IQ points smarter. That's actually a good amount, but the R2 model is rumored to come out within the next month. And if it is as good as the new O3 models, which the rumors are saying it might be, OpenAI is in trouble. They are in trouble for sure. Okay, let's move on to some other LLM stuff. So the next trend is that LLMs are all becoming the same. I've been saying this for a while now. I love Perplexity. Perplexity still is one of my favorite tools, and I don't think I'll get rid of it necessarily, but I do think their business is in trouble, which is why I think they are pivoting to a browser. So they're releasing something called Comet, which is a web browser, and they've needed to pivot for a while because their search feature is now becoming table stakes for all of these other companies. Like Gemini just added search, Claude just added search, Grok on XAI just added search, and it is the best search out of all of them. Grok is actually like low-key as good as Perplexity at a lot of things. And this is Gemini. And look at this. I showed you earlier the example of Claude having search now, and it also had Artifact, which is that window that opens up on the side. We'll take a look at this. It says make a snake game, and in the side window, Artifact, just like Claude, it now creates a snake game. So a snake game gets created over here on the side. And so we see that all of these tools are becoming very, very similar. ChatGPT has the Canvas feature. Grok is building this feature into their AI products. Claude, everyone has this side view as well as search. And so it's very hard to compete if you're a company like Perplexity. And all these tools are basically becoming commodities. They're becoming very, very similar. The main conclusion here, actually, is if you're in between, you're like, oh my God, which one should I choose? ChatGPT, Claude, Google, Grok, or Perplexity, or any of the other tools that are offered right now? The short answer is that it actually doesn't really matter that much. And if you're putting a lot of time and you're worried that you're falling behind because you can't make a decision, just pick one randomly. Roll a dice for all I care. You just need to apply this technology. All these models are becoming very, very good, and they're becoming very good very fast, and they're all becoming cheaper. And so putting too much thought into deciding which LLM to use doesn't really matter that much. Let's move on to the next topic. So now let's go into my favorite topic right now. If you watch my content, this is basically my pride and joy. I love this trend so much. It is so much fun. Vibe coding, where you use AI to code stuff. I've built many apps. I've learned so much on this topic over the past 6 months. However, there is a dark side right now, and it involves this guy, Leo. So Leo, prior to these tweets right here, prior to those tweets, Leo came out and said, I created this game. And I think it was a flight simulator game, but I'm not sure, I don't fully remember. I just know he came out with something that was really popular. A lot of people were excited. And then the anti-AI crowd took revenge on him, and they hacked his game. And so he said, my SaaS was built with Cursor, 0 handwritten code. AI is no longer assistant, it's also the builder. Now you can continue to whine about it or start building. That is the tweet that pissed people off. That was probably a bad tweet, right? This is in bad taste. Right? Whether or not he's right about this is bad taste. Someone is trying to find security vulnerabilities in my app, clearly with no good intentions. I've got an encrypted message for you. F you. And then it only got worse for poor Leo. He said, guys, I'm under attack. Ever since I started to share how I built my SaaS using Cursor, random things are happening. Maxed out usage on my API keys. People are bypassing the subscription, creating random shit on the database. As you know, I'm not technical, so this is taking me longer than usual to figure out. For now, I will stop sharing what I do publicly on X. There are some weird people out there. Now, he said half the internet is trying to break my app. Probably not, probably like 10 people who are just taking advantage of him, making it seem like a lot of people are doing it. Just for sharing publicly a mistake I made. You know what's the worst thing? They are doing it for fun. And this is what happens when you do something on the internet that people can take advantage of, and when you do it in poor taste, right? This tweet and this tweet are, a little pompous. You might not want to do that. And so they are trying to take advantage of him, and now he is under attack, nowhere to be heard of. And then after this, Klaus tweeted, security audit as a service for vibe coders. And I think Jeff Bezos was actually right here. The overproduction of vibe coders will lead to an insane demand for vibe debuggers. And then this guy tweeted, I love this. It's called vibe checking, you dummy. And so yeah, you have vibe coding and then you have vibe checking. And vibe checking is the part that is not nearly as fun for people like me, for people like poor Leo, who has to debug their code and check it for vulnerabilities, and they don't even know how to code. And that is the hard part. And so the lesson from this section is that the demand for vibe coding is rapidly increasing. It is becoming a major trend. People who don't want to manually write code really want to build apps because it's getting significantly easier and it's really fun. People aren't talking about how fun it is to build a little game for yourself and then play it and then add things wherever your heart desires, right? That's the part of vibe coding that's fun, is to not fully plan something out when you start, but just to go along with it and just quickly use AI and vibe while you create apps. And therefore, the demand for vibe checking will increase. And I think this is a massive market opportunity for highly technical people, because you can solve this with people to start, right? There are people who are creating vibe-coded apps, and maybe you get it 70% of the way there, and then you have to vibe check it. You need to check it for bugs. You need to basically finish the app and get it deployed so that it can make money. And that is going to become a very high demand thing. As people can create more prototypes, you need people checking them. And what companies, I think, are going to do is companies are going to manually check this with humans. Maybe it's $200 or $1,000 to take your app and just finish it off and to just check for bugs, vulnerabilities, and make sure everything's set up properly. And then, slowly but surely, those people can be replaced by AI. And soon we're going to have AI vibe checkers. And it might be really expensive. It might be a lot of input tokens, as we talked about earlier. It might be a lot of money, but it will actually still be more efficient than people. And so I think that's the trend that we're going to see. Maybe over the next year or so, we're going to see a lot more companies created where humans will just edit your code, get it deployed for you so that you have an operational site. Prototypes cost $5,000 to $10,000 to $50,000, depending on the app sometimes. Especially working with the top agencies, it costs a lot of money to prototype. Well, now it doesn't. You can freely prototype, and then you can hire someone to do the vibe checking. And so, yeah, I think this is going to be a rapidly growing industry, and it's going to be more and more automated to the point where over the next 2 to 3 years, AI is just going to do all of the vibe checking. So vibe code with AI, then vibe check with AI. I'll continue to follow the downsides of vibe coding closely. So now I want to talk about the positives, the cool things happening in vibe coding. So V0 now allows you to add assets and binaries directly into your code base. And the main thing I want to point out in this is that V0 is just looking so much better. If you go to v0.dev, this is my favorite front-end vibe coding tool, because you can create really cool sites and they have cool templates. And so what we can do here is we can select a site that we want to do. We can actually hit open in V0. And it opens up this right here. As you can see, it has a cool little background here. And here it has, we can just say, make this for my app called Quick Vibe that allows me to check my bad code. Actually, make this an app for an app called Vibe Check that allows me to check my bad code and make it better so I can code with AI, then use AI to check the bad code, adjust the text. And so we can use, this is in Next.js, and this will actually just edit the code here and we can quickly create stuff. And would you just look at that? This is kind of fun. It creates this site right here. Level up your code quality, upload the code, and let vibe check, analyze, improve it, and transform it. And the point is they've actually added some really cool features. And so what we can do is we can just save some random images here. I just want to show this as an example. Let's get 6 Midjourney characters right here, and we can actually go back to V0. And we can say, I want there to be 6 AI assistants that you can choose from. These are medieval names. So the images that I'm going to upload right now, I want these to be in the site, shown up in the size of like baseball cards above the level up your code quality, and then have like text underneath it that says, These are your AI vibe checker companions. And so we can upload that text right there. And now what we're gonna do is we can hit upload files, upload from computer. I just saved these 6 right here. Let's go ahead and hit open. And what we're gonna do is wait for these to load. And now V0 actually will add these into your code base and use these in the actual design, which is very cool. Take a look at this. This is very cool. Now these images are directly in here. We can view it full screen and we can see these characters, and it added this like gradient. I mean, this is cool, and it like gets bigger when you hover over it. That's sick, actually. And so yeah, V0 is doing a lot of cool things. They've also added a database feature, but I'll actually talk about that in a dedicated video, talking about how to use this with database, because I actually haven't tested it yet. The point is, they're shipping some amazing features. It's starting to look a lot more like Lovable and Bolt, and I think this is really cool. Now let's move over to the main story in vibe coding, which is vibe coding video games. And the largest hackathon ever, apparently, according to Bolt, and with over $1 million in prizes. I think over 1,000 people entered in a website or a game, and it is going to be hosted by Greg Eisenberg. Shout out to Greg, one of my favorite podcasters. I've been on his show 3 times now. And yeah, he's going to host it. It's going to be awesome. And people are just creating games. And this was a really cool game right here. So let's check this out. This was a game created by Danny Postma, and he vibe coded this game where you are this character in a Pokemon-like game, and you can actually speak directly to other characters in the game. And you can actually type to the character, "Hey there," and the AIs will respond. So the NPCs within the game are going to respond. They're using one of the AI model's APIs to talk to the different characters in the game, which I think is really cool. So there's also another trend going on right now in the vibe coding video game world where people are now hooking it up to their camera and they're creating these like workout games. So as you can see here, it keeps track of which arm is doing a lift, and I think this is kind of fun. But it actually gets even more fun than this. I actually died laughing when I saw this. So this is a Flappy Bird that requires you to flap your arms to play the game. So it's using that same vision technology, and I'll play this right now. Look at this. He's like tired. It's actually hilarious. Here's another example of a video game. I mean, look at how detailed this game is. People are vibe coding games, and I'm not sure how they're getting these 3D models in there or how to get them to realistically run like this, but this is something I'm going to be talking about in the future. We're also seeing other tools like 3JS avatar galleries, and so these are avatars that you can use in your games. And so you can see here, this is, who tweeted this? This is Talks Sam, who created all these avatars that you can use in your game, and he created this like carrot character. We also have skeleton, turtle, a door, cool radish, and these are characters that you can use in your game. Okay, and so with that being said, obviously we know about the risks of vibe coding because you can get hacked. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. You could get into an infinite error loop of death, which I've talked about in great lengths in previous videos. But it's also a lot easier to build products with AI. And with that comes the importance of a cohesive design. Basically, a product that is created well with high craftsmanship. And so Nikita Baer, who's probably the biggest expert in terms of growing apps and designing apps in a way that allows them to grow, that are intuitive, so that users can understand them immediately, even if they've never come across this type of technology before. And he said this: after advising 50+ consumer companies over the last year, the one thing that separates those who can execute and those who can't, having a full-time designer in the room at all times. I've met with countless companies that have raised millions, and even the ones that have raised billions, that do not have a designer on payroll. This makes product development broken. You simply cannot have a constructive conversation about ideas without visualizing them in real time. Your experiments will frequently have inconclusive results because users cannot discover features or they misunderstand how they work. There is no one who can galvanize the team with a vision of what the product could look like and feel like. At the end of the day, products live and die in the pixels. It's what the user sees and tap. And without someone shepherding that process, you are effectively wandering the desert blind. Willem said that I've spent my career on this, and one thing is clear: the best founders empower design, not superficially or as decoration, but as a driving force for thinking, creation, and execution. Design brings great companies to life. I think that design is something that people just assume they understand because it's just design. Something looks good. You know, that looks good, right? I have good taste for what a good app looks like. And I think that you need people who pay close attention to detail, who take great care in building something. And this is something that I really want to learn. I want to understand design. What makes good design? I really don't understand it. So that's something I'm going to talk about in future videos. Okay, so next up we have robots. And this is just, I just saw this video and thought it was interesting, and I thought it was worth contemplating for a couple minutes in this update video. But like, look at this video. This is insane. You know, this is the world's first side-flipping humanoid robot. I mean, come on, that's crazy. It actually looks fake. It legit looks fake. I mean, that's just crazy. And so as AI models get a better sense of the real world, and we can see this in video models, all right, it understands what everything in these, you know, if you go back to PIKA Labs, it said make the car levitate. Those same video models will actually understand the real world, and we're going to have robots that can basically do most physical tasks within the next 5 years. And so I wonder if anyone is not super interested in vibe coding, but wants to dive into robots and maybe create applications that help people in the real world, that's definitely something to follow. Humanoid robots are something that I don't think it'll be until the beginning of 2027, even though Tesla says they're going to be shipping a bunch next year. I think they're going to be quite bad. I don't think they're going to get good until 2027 or later. You know, like I call it the dishwasher and laundry test. If a robot is doing my dishes and laundry, like that's when I've made it. That's all I want it to do. I really want it to just do like simple household chores for me so we don't have to do them anymore. That is a great future and a great use of technology. I don't think we'll be there until 2027, 2028, except for maybe like really high-end robots that maybe cost like 50 to 75,000 or more. But even that sounds worth it. Like if you think about it on a 5-year loan, like a car, like imagine not having to do dishes or laundry for 5 years. Maybe it's not worth 50 grand. I don't know. Point is, robots are coming, they'll be in your house, and it's gonna be insane. NVIDIA also announced Newton. I don't really fully understand what Newton did. I just thought it was a really cute thing that they announced at their last event, which is kind of sick. This little Newton character. So this one is on the sad side. AI is becoming better than humans at memes. So Ethan Mollick said, I regret to announce the meme Turing test has been passed. LLMs produce funnier memes than the average human, as judged by humans. Humans working with AI get no boost. The best human memers still beat AI, however. Basically, they were having these multiple choice questions for humans, and they were judging which memes were the funniest. And so you rank them 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it turns out that the ones that were most often marked as number 1 and got the overall highest score were AI. AI generated all of these memes. So this study, we conducted a user study with 3 groups of 50 participants, a human-only group creating memes without AI assistance, a human-AI collaboration group interacting with a state-of-the-art LLM model, so you know, an AI and humans working together, and then an AI-only group where the LLM autonomously generated memes. We assess the quality of the generated memes through crowdsourcing, with each meme rated on creativity, humor, and shareability. And one of the things that they found is that AI actually boosts productivity to create content that appeals to a very broad audience. That's the key, to a broad audience. And human creativity remains crucial for content that connects at a deeper level. So the more niche it is, the more it's tailored to a specific audience, the humans did better. The humans are more needed. And this actually intuitively makes sense to me, where AI models are trained on the internet, like all of the data, all of it. And it makes sense that it would be better at these broad things because it understands the broad patterns of society that someone might find funny, but it doesn't understand specific niches. And yeah, I just thought this was very interesting. Up next, we have insane lip sync model for dubbing. So check this out. So this is Nicolas Cage. And so they built the most natural lip sync model in the world again. Let's check this out.
Was finde ich, wenn ich mich selbst google? Meist etwas, das ich weiß, dass es nicht wahr ist. Und ich muss jemanden anrufen, um klarzustellen, dass ich kein Betrüger bin, der jemandem in England. What do I find out when I Google myself? Well, usually something that I know is not true, and I usually have to call somebody to let them know that I am not an imposter who is taking money from someone in England. Que vois-je quand je me Google? Souvent quelque chose de faux et je dois appeler quelqu'un pour
Pretty impressive.
Clarifier que je ne suis pas un imposteur qui vole de l'argent à quelqu'un en Angleterre para hacerle saber que no soy un impostor que está tomando dinero de alguien en Inglaterra.
And yeah, so this here is other lip sync models, and this is how kind of all of them sort of look. It looks like it's very like the upper lip and the bottom lip just kind of like move up and down rather than look super realistic like this one appears to be. Obviously, I haven't tested this.
No soy un impostor que está tomando dinero de alguien en Inglaterra. Esas son las razones por las que es una buena idea hacerlo, pero es una pendiente resbaladiza.
So in the short run, I think that people like me can create content in English and get it out to a wider audience, maybe create a dedicated channel for specific languages. However, I think long-term, Google's just going to build this straight into YouTube. This, you'll be able to just change the language and the videos will just switch to highly effective lip sync models. Or maybe the creators can like opt in to doing that. And maybe they can offer it. And it'll just be a setting on these video platforms. But this is too useful of a product, of a technology, to not implement this deeply into social media platforms. And then finally, I guess we'll end on the most depressing part. Let's talk about jobs. And this maps with the overall sentiment. Many people who are working remotely are terrified of losing jobs. And people who have been digital nomads that I've talked to, who felt invincible 2 years ago as they traveled the world doing basically whatever they want, making good money from a US company, but living in Thailand or something. They were living life very open and free, but now they are stressed because they feel like they could actually lose their job. And these are highly educated, highly talented people who could lose their job. And Amazon plans to terminate 14,000 managerial positions to save $3.5 billion per year. Andrew Yang has been tweeting, guys, AI is going to eat a ton of jobs. I don't see anyone really talking about this meaningfully in terms of what to do about it for people. What is the plan? And then he goes on to show that the length of tasks AIs can do is doubling every 7 months. And so we are now at an hour, where like the first tasks for GPT-2 pre-2020, was a 3-second task, hardly anything. And now with these agentic workflows, AIs can work for up to an hour. I've been using Cursor to code apps in their new Max mode. I asked it to create an app. It worked for like 9 minutes the other day before it was done, and it created like a 7-feature app. And with Manus, right, we've seen tools like Manus that can agentically work for a very long time. Deep research can do research for a very long time. And so if this trend continues, which I see no signs of it showing down, I see the only barrier as costs. And with DeepSeek, the costs of running these models are becoming less and less. So I think this trend is going to get even worse. And so in the short term, I definitely see a lot of jobs that are based on routine, right? If you have repetitive tasks that you do every day on the computer, you're in trouble. You know, unless you own the company, then you want it to be automated, right? If you're an equity holder, you want the company to become more efficient so you can make more money as a equity holder, as someone who gets to share the profits of the company. The problem is that's not most people who work for companies. They are employees. And if you are an employee working on a laptop where your job is repetitive tasks on the computer, no matter what it is, you're in trouble. I genuinely believe that. And so it's definitely something to look at. And then at the end here, what did I add? Oh yeah, best thing, yeah, I agree with this. I don't agree with Mark Cuban on everything, but I agreed with this.
If I was 16, 18, 20, 21, starting today, I would spend every waking minute learning about AI. Not even if I'm sleeping, I'm listening to podcasts talking about AI. And then when I was trying everything, my whole Instagram and TikTok feeds are now AI hacks because there's that much changing that rapidly.
By the way, he's commented on multiple of my videos on Instagram and TikTok.
It went from back in the way back in the day, $5,000 for a PC that was that big, right? Yeah. To, hey, if you just have a laptop and a connection to the internet, you can start anything.
It's actually so crazy how if you talk to people who've been red-pilled by AI and they've realized that all of this technology is open and out there for you to use and apply in your life, and you can start businesses with this technology while big companies like Microsoft and Google and all these other massive companies can't really adopt new technology like that. You have to go through a bunch of layers of bureaucracy just to approve the usage of certain technology, while you can just create cool software for people. You can start an agency with AI helping people learn these new tools. The people who've realized that you can just use these tools and you can learn whatever you want, whenever you want, really quick, really fast. And whenever you run into a problem, just use AI. Use AI to figure out how to do it and then just do it. And it's that process over and over and over again. And you need to have a project mentality, right? I think that's incredibly important, to have a project mentality and just do projects. I don't care if they lead to money, but if you set your mind on doing a specific project, then your mind will look for solutions to the problem. And you're gonna find that the best way to find solutions to a problem is just to use AI and just listen to what it says. Because it is a very, very smart chatbot assistant that knows the answer to a lot of things. Knows where you can go to learn a lot of things. They basically took all the books in the world that you could read to get smarter and they put it in a machine that gives you the answer when you need it. All you gotta do is ask. But that's the hard part. And you need a why. Anyway, guys, if you go to softwarecomposer.com, this is where I put all of the useful information on vibe coding. As I said, vibe coding is it's my favorite thing in the entire world right now. We have close to 14,000 members in here in the community. We are doing a live stream, right? If you click on live streams, you can sign up for the live stream. We have 300 people signed up. March 26th, we're going to be talking about building mobile apps. There's going to be a secret announcement in there as well, if you want to come hang out. And yeah, that is softwarecomposer.com. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.